On the mobile base of Rhodes Island, some may occasionally hear the sound of a cello being played. The sounds by the cello are often described bordering on the sorrow side. This cello playing is from the operator Ebenholz, a caster and skillful musician. Oddly enough, his most proficient instrument is the flute, but he's never seen playing one. The cello has captivated Ebenholz's attention. When alone with the cello, he sometimes just spaces out looking at it. What exactly is this instrument to Ebenholz? Ebenholz is a young man born on June 5th, his race being the Caprine, showing traits similar to that of goats and sheeps. Many Caprine hail from the country Litanian, and Ebenholz is no different. He's a powerful arts caster operator. He's described as an unapproachable man. He will be polite, but short when speaking with nearly anyone. There are very few people who Ebenholz would even open up to. This includes the ever-so-mysterious Doctor of Rhodes Island. Even if one was to squeeze an ounce of words from him, he carries a bit of gloom with how he talks with nearly any subject. Ebenholz was a university student but sadly had to drop out and seek medical attention for his oropathy infection. He now works as a field operator for Rhodes Island. For those seeking medical attention for their oropathy infection, in exchange they would have to basically work for Rhodes Island. Now, according to his official Litanian documentation, prior to his recruitment into Rhodes Island, Ebenholz was an ordinary student studying music and originium arts at a university located in Wieseheim. The mixing of originium arts and music is not uncommon to hear of from Litanian. This country is known for their use of arts far more than their neighbors. For those unfamiliar, arts is, for the sake of simplicity, the magic in the world of Arknights. Sadly, it's not that cut and dry for Ebenholz's history. In reality, he was not born and raised in Wieseheim, but rather in Ortica. And he was not just any normal citizen of Ortica, but rather the Graf Ortica. Graf usually translated to count, making him a noble. Ortica is a territory that was passed down by those in the Witch King's lineage. Because of this, his blood has ties to the infamous tyrannical Witch King. The Witch King was a powerful and cruel individual who ruled over Litanian for many years. One of his horrific acts during this time of ruling involved him using a whole town of people as part of his arts experiment. The experiment resulted in the death of everyone in that town. He was thankfully overthrown and defeated by the twin empresses that now rule over Litanian. But to say that everyone was satisfied with the removal of the Witch King is far from the truth. There are still those who align themselves with the late Witch King, living in the shadows of everyday life, calling themselves the Witch King's remnants. The hate of the Witch King was so strong that even after his fall, there were many who despised anyone who was even slightly related to him. Ebenholz's parents were such people, and they were killed just for having a distant blood relationship. Only a child at the time, Ebenholz was whisked away before meeting the same fate. Unfortunately, he was rescued by the evil Witch King's remnants. They subjected Ebenholz and many children to the terrible and life-threatening experiments, with Ebenholz being the only child to survive the experiments. The Witch King's remnants implemented the voice of the mundane into his head. The voice of the mundane is described as a melody created by the Witch King himself, causing Ebenholz to experience painful headaches from time to time. But this seemingly is related to his natural talents in both music and arts. The purpose of the voice remains unclear. After what seems to be ages in captivity, Ebenholz was rescued by the Twin Empress's people. He was no longer subjected to evil experiments. However, he wasn't satisfied with where he ended up at, as he was nothing more than a puppet for the Twin Empresses of Litanian, a political tool to be used by other nobles around him, with some nobles even wishing for his death for political gain. Ebenholz did not wish to be controlled in this noble life. He wanted to let his title go and live a free life. Later in his life, he was approached by Gertrude Strollo, the noblewoman who controlled Wieseheim. She is fully aware of Ebenholz's distaste of the noble life and his voice of the mundane, telling him of a solution to be rid of it all. William Fichtes Cerny is a famed musician in Wieseheim, and his sponsor was none other than Gertrude, the current overseer of Wieseheim. Auditions were held for Cerny's farewell concert before he took his musical talents and went worldwide with it. The concert took place in the Afterglow district of Wieseheim, an area with a large concentration of infected citizens. Gertrude invited many to the concert, including other nobles. Anyone was open to try their hand to impress the great Cerny, and if you pass the audition, you'll have the honor of playing with him. Cerny is passionate about his music, and his passion is on par with how meticulous he is. Try as one might, but he is stern and picky about who he wants to play with. Kreide is one such musician. The young Cabernet man lives in poverty with his sick grandfather, and he wished to use his musical skills to help with the medical attention. The boy was so poor, he didn't even have his own instrument. In fact, he lived on the floor for most of his life while giving up the only bed in the house to his grandfather. If one was to look up the definition of kindness, you'd find Kreide's picture next to it, because despite his tough life, he still believes that kindness should prevail over anything else. He had hoped to receive money from the concert, but quickly learns that there will be no compensation for his participation. Feeling dejected, but already there, he decides to perform anyways. He decides to perform with his most proficient instrument taught to him by his beloved teacher, the cello. He's provided a cello to play with, and his performance is nothing short of sublime. When his performance reached its sweetest peak, a concert flute joins from out of nowhere. A young noble man in black comes out to play and accompanies Kreide, Ebenholz himself. Neither had any intentions of performing with one another, but Ebenholz did not want to miss this opportunity to play with him. Ebenholz, feeling gracious, decides to lend money to Kreide in exchange for playing as a duo, to which he accepts. The two eventually become Cerny's top choice to play with during the concert. Regardless of economic status and social class, music binded these two together. As they practiced for the concert, their friendship grew stronger. When a rude shop employee nearly kicked out Kreide from the store, Ebenholz was quick to defend him, even buying him a new suit and cello for the concert. And when Ebenholz fell ill, Kreide looked after him. The two even worked together to stop a swarm of slugs from overtaking the town. Kreide was very sentimental. He kept certain tokens from people in his life to remember them by, such as a bow from his former cello teacher. This idea was foreign to Ebenholz, as he grew up lonely with no friends. But he was open to the idea of exchanging tokens so he can remember Kreide after this is all over. The only problem was what to exchange. In a short time, these two became the best of friends. To say coincidence brought these two together would be far from the truth. In fact, this was all arranged by Gertrude. Gertrude planned to transfer Ebenholz's voice of the mundane to a new vessel, Kreide. During the concert, she planned to create a distraction and during the commotion start the transfer process. However, this will result in the death of Kreide, which she plans to disguise him as Ebenholz to allow him to fake his death and walk away from his life. The question remains though, why Kreide? The truth is, Ebenholz wasn't the only child to survive the experiments. Kreide was there too as a child. The boys possessed a piece of this voice of the mundane. They both survived the experiments due to their Witch King's bloodline, meaning Kreide and Ebenholz are both relatives. Everything happened when they were both so young that they didn't remember one another. Kreide was rescued, but instead of living in the nobility spotlight, he lived a nomadic life with a man who he believed to be his grandfather, jumping from various towns in order to hide from people who would take violent actions against those infected. Now, Kreide's voice of the mundane works differently. Ebenholz was able to control the voice to an extent, with it having an on and off state, while Kreide's voice was constantly on and quietly affecting anyone around him. The condition of those infected with oropathy would worsen over time when around Kreide. Gertrude's plan actually involved a lot more than what she let on. Her intentions were far from altruistic. She killed her brother in order to seize her position of being in charge of Wieseheim. She planned to turn the concert hall into a weapon to destroy the Afterglow district and everyone in it, by use of secret amplifiers in the concert hall. During the voice transfer process, these amplifiers will enhance the use of arts during the concert. When Kreide's voice is amplified, it will leak out faster than normal, infecting and killing everyone in the area. Gertrude's reasoning for all this? Her family fell into hard times because of her father being associated with the Witch King. Her father was also a member of the Witch King's remnants, but was killed for nearly betraying the group. She wanted revenge against the government, the remnants, and really everyone. This act of destroying the Afterglow district was just her way of getting back. Not to overthrow anyone, but merely just to cause suffering. Gertrude's plan was foiled by Ebenholz, and she was under arrest by Biegler, a spy who worked for the Twin Empress. With her stopped and the amplifiers being removed, all threats seem neutralized and the concert can proceed safely. Still concerned with the voices, Cerny volunteered himself to channel both of the boys' voices into himself, constructing a new song that quite literally used his life force. He made what could be his final song, Licht und Schatten, Light and Shadow. He felt as if he's done enough in life, and wanted both boys to live a better life without the voices tormenting them. Cerny was ready to accept death to save them both. During the grand finale, Cerny tried to capture both of the voices. As the three performed, the voices were leaving both of the boys' bodies as planned, but unbeknownst to everyone, things were about to go out of control. While Gertrude was under house arrest, Biegler made the mistake of letting her play the harp, allowing her to channel her arts to disrupt Cerny's process. Biegler didn't attempt to stop her prior, as she was still a noblewoman, and laying hands on her would not be wise in the eyes of the law. By the time he realized this, the damage was already done. Before she was arrested, even before the audition started, she had the entire concert hall converted into an amplifier for arts. Her disruption of the voices made it hard for them to locate a vessel to go to. If the voices are unable to find a suitable vessel, they'll collapse into an all-consuming void within the concert hall, swallowing everyone within. Biegler stabs her to death, but it's too late now. Cerny couldn't control the situation anymore, but someone could. Kryda takes it upon himself to channel both the voices into his body, an extremely dangerous move. But this pays off and saves everyone in the process. But Kryda was beginning to change. His body is now all twisted up, with originium crystals protruding through his skin and clothes. He was becoming a monster. Ebenholz carries the weakened Kryda away from the concert hall to prevent anyone from getting hurt from this transformation. Kryda says to Ebenholz that despite the experiments done onto him that resulted on his tough life, he believes that as long as he gave kindness to others, he can feel their kindness in return. They were both fated to die in those cruel and inhumane experiments performed by the Witch King's remnants. They were fated to die at the concert hall as a part of Gertrude's plans. But in both of these scenarios, they lived. He says both him and Ebenholz walk the path of rebellion against fate. He asks for one final thing from Ebenholz. Ebenholz now comes face to face with the monster who consumed his friend's body, and he must put an end to the monstrosity. It's worth noting that during the actual boss fight in Arknights, there are 3 phases, and when the second phase happens, the Kryda monster will switch from being an enemy to an ally, attacking all hostile enemies for you for a time. He'll even perform a move where he'll actually reduce his HP by a significant amount, showing us that deep down in this monster, Kryda was still trying his best to fight back. But sadly, this fight can only end in one way, with Kryda's death. After a long and painful battle, the monster is defeated, and Kryda's body emerges from the husk of the monster. Ebenholz goes to his body, and Kryda gives him his final words. Live on, Ebenholz, and walk through the long night. Fight injustice, and treat others with generosity and charity. Only by doing so will I live on in your memories. I'll ask you, how did your day go, Ebenholz? And you'll tell me proudly that you had a good and productive day. You'll tell me about the challenges you faced while doing good, and complain about how fate is a miser. And it will be okay, because I'll be listening. It's alright to complain a little when you worked so hard. Only by doing so will you rise above pain and suffering, and find peace in your heart. Remember that we fought against cruel fate and won. When you think of me, laugh. Don't cry. He apologizes for not having a token to give the Ebenholz to remember him by, and passes on. Ebenholz carries his body to the concert hall. On his way over, he realizes he's been injured by an originium crystal. He's now infected. But this fact just pales in comparison to what he has just lost. He lays Kryda's body onto the sofa of the lounge room in the concert hall, something Kryda never had the chance to do while he was alive, as he always slept on the hard floor. Ebenholz spots his cello and takes it to remember him by, and in exchange, he leaves his flute behind. With Ebenholz now infected, he's taken into Rhodes Island where he works in exchange for medical attention. Sometime after his recruitment into Rhodes Island, the doctor hands him a package. The sender is anonymous, but the package contains the passport for a Lytanian citizen, Ebenholz. Not only that, but it also includes the death certificates of Kreide and Graf Ortica. The letter from the package reads, "Dear Mr. Ebenholz, congratulations on the freedom that you've been longing for. I am writing this letter to inform you that our common enemy, Graf Ortica, has passed away. I would like to extend my sincerest apologies to you in regards to the troubles he and his friends have brought about. It is my hope that this letter and the file enclosed may reach you as a consolation. P.S. Please ensure that the death of Graf Ortica remains a cold, hard fact. Otherwise, our joint effort will eventually go down the drain." Ebenholz sets fire to all of the contents he received. He picks up the cello, thinks back to how his dear friend played the cello, closes his eyes, and begins to play a simple, lively melody.